Stop everything because what you're about to hear will rip your soul apart and make you doubt everything you believed you knew about Hollywood's shining faces. Imagine this: a hushed courtroom, the atmosphere heavy, every gaze locked on the man who fired the bullet at Malcolm. The same Malcolm who once brightened screens with his grin. The same Malcolm whose joy was genuine, whose ambitions were larger than existence itself. But tonight, that murderer is not grinning. His tone shakes, his eyes are damp, and with a single admission, he unleashes a revelation that rattles the entire chamber to its core. I wasn't by myself. Bill Cosby gave the command. Regina King and Phylicia Rashad sat in those gatherings. They wanted Malcolm silenced eternally. Gasps ripple through the courtroom. The audience freezes in shock. A mother crumbles to the ground, crying her son's name. Reporters frantically jot as flashes burst, seizing a moment that feels more like a terror than reality. And just when you believe it couldn't grow darker, another disclosure emerges. Malcolm's last journal concealed until now with chilling lines carved across the sheet. They know they're watching. If I talk, I perish. The chamber erupts in mayhem. Social media blazes. Hashtags surge worldwide. Candlelight memorials transform into furious uprisings. And then a leaked recording appears. A voice that chills every vein in your body murmurs, "If I fall, they all fall." This is no longer just about Malcolm's slaying. This is about the vile truth buried beneath Hollywood's gilded lights. So steel yourself because what follows will leave you broken. Stop everything. The world you imagined you knew about Hollywood, about purity, about fairness, it's crumbling. One revelation has crushed it all. The man sentenced for Malcolm's death, sitting behind cells, once distant and frozen, now speaks. His voice quakes, his phrases drip with poison and dread. And what he discloses is so grotesque, so soul-crushing, that no one will ever view the icons of Hollywood the same way again. I wasn't by myself. Bill Cosby, he engineered it. Regina King, Phylicia Rashad, they were present. Every session, every scheme. They wanted Malcolm erased. Those statements didn't just strike the hall, they detonated it. The courtroom halted. Reporters dropped their notebooks mid-line. The mother of Malcolm, the boy whose joy once filled screens and souls, wailed until her strength gave out, collapsing to the ground as tears pooled around her. Crowds outside the courtroom swarmed the avenues. Candlelight memorials became protest parades. Social media didn't just blaze, it erupted. A justice formal, a Cosby scheme, Regina exposed. Millions of eyes locked to devices, unable to unsee the horror unfolding. Picture Malcolm once full of energy, brilliance, and faith. Silenced by a system built to shield the wealthy and mighty. His murderer trembling persisted. They didn't just need me to do it. They swore my existence wouldn't count if I stayed silent. If I stumbled, my relatives would bear the cost. Cosby understood exactly how to deceive, how to dominate, how to conceal, and then the unimaginable. The admission broadened the range, pulling two Hollywood legends into the chaos. Regina King, Emmy recipient, cherished presence. Phylicia Rashad, America's maternal figure, once admired and adored, now accused of planning a young man's murder. The words were not murmurs. They were carved into the official record. The chamber went quiet, heavy as steel. Social media exploded instantly. TikTok edits stitched Malcolm's glowing face to mugshots, courtroom reels, and the stunned looks of Cosby, King, and Rashad. Memes labeled them Hollywood's darkest schemers. Twitter surged like never before. Every upload, every frame, every comment was a blade, tearing the illusion of virtue to shreds. But the tale doesn't end with just admission. The murderer exposed hidden bargains, whispers of FBI meddling, and a system poisoned by celebrity advantage. Documents were locked, inquiries quietly abandoned, proof conveniently misplaced. According to his statement, Malcolm's death wasn't a crime of impulse. It was execution staged like a studio spectacle scripted for silence. Malcolm's journal appeared, ripped pages drenched in terror and clarity. They know they're watching. If I speak, I perish, he wrote. Every line screamed caution. Every scroll hinted at truths too lethal, too explosive to be allowed into daylight. And just when the public thought they had absorbed the nightmare, the tape surfaced, Bill Cosby's supposed voice, low and sinister. If I fall, they all collapse. Chills surged through spines globally. This wasn't just an admission. It was a warning, a weapon, a revelation that the man once called America's dad was anything but. Malcolm's mother, his kin, the fans, they were left to endure a nightmare. The sorrow shifted into fury. Streets filled with chants for justice. Studios froze productions, advertisers vanished, streaming platforms removed content. Regina King's forthcoming projects were halted. Phylicia Rashad's academic title came under scrutiny. The world demanded answers, but the silence from the accused and institutions only poured oil onto the flames. Meanwhile, the murderer gained a twisted form of fame. Every leaked track, every grin, every chilling phrase turned into viral spectacle. Crowds couldn't stop watching, couldn't turn away. "If I'm going down, I'm not taking it solo," he allegedly said, and the world trusted him, or at least yearned to. Anonymous voices murmured about safeguard files, hidden caches of recordings, bank ledgers, secret dealings capable of collapsing careers overnight. Cosby allegedly held the code, a weapon of massive revelation, and if the wrong step was taken, entire reputations would crumble. Whispers spread about the contents, names of stars, moguls, lawmakers, and figures no one expected to see entangled in shadow. Malcolm's death, the journal, the tapes, it was more than a disaster. It was a signal, a warning, a tale of corruption, deception, and cruelty behind Hollywood's dazzling mask. And the murderer. He was now both witness and weapon, negotiating for mercy with knowledge that could spark an inferno across the business. Demonstrations turned brutal. Candlelight vigils shifted into demands for vengeance. Students, admirers, civil rights leaders demanded responsibility. Streets filled with posters. Hollywood shields murderers. Justice for Malcolm. People who once clapped for red carpet grins now shouted for truth. The diary's disclosure hinted that Malcolm wasn't just prey. In his final moments, he had pieced together a web of deceit, intimidation, and sinister alliances. He had seen the rot in the structure, and for knowing too much, for daring to write it down, his breath was stolen. The public story shifted. Illusion replaced truth. Cosby's silence was read as guilt. King and Rashad's refusals collapsed under the burden of blame. Every skipped interview, every erased post, every dodged reply fueled rumors. The world had rewritten their identities. Once idols, now monsters. By week 2, the scandal had expanded. Late-night programs ridiculed the alleged plotters. News networks ran hour-long dissections. Reddit sleuths and YouTube hunters analyzed every leaked note, every script, every frame for hidden codes. The industry was rattled to its bones. Agreements were frozen. Studio contracts canceled. The elite realized that public perception, once a faint background murmur, had become a weapon. And yet, the raw ache remained with Malcolm's relatives. Every memory of his grin, his humor, his dreams collided with the shock of betrayal and slaughter. Every candle, every march, every surging hashtag was a reminder. Their son's voice was silenced, his life stolen, and the system that should have guarded him had collapsed under power and favoritism. The hook of the scandal had already spread globally, a killer's admission, Hollywood royalty entangled, FBI whispers hinted, and a young man's final warnings released to the world. People were locked to their screens, sobbing furious, powerless, but unable to turn away. By the close of Part 1, the stage was prepared. Malcolm's tale was no longer just his own. It was a cultural quake. Every watcher, every reader, every online user now carried a fragment of this tragedy. And the question hovered, would justice ever arrive? Or would the mighty continue to bury the truth? This was merely the opening. The world had opened the first page of a nightmare cloaked as Hollywood brilliance. And everyone watching knew, once the truth begins unraveling, there is no return. The world had barely caught its breath when the next revelation dropped. A storm was forming that no one in Hollywood could restrain. Social media streams were blazing, but this time the disclosures were deeper, darker, more intimate. Anonymous. Voices began leaking papers, audio notes, and snapshots that painted a picture so terrifying it felt like the business itself was bleeding. It started with a blurry sound file, a voice icy and methodical, outlining gatherings that no one was supposed to know occurred. The names of the mighty were spoken, people admired, revered, untouchable. And yet, in the shadows, they were scheming, maneuvering, hiding crimes beneath red carpets and flashing lenses. Every second the recording played, viewers across the planet clenched their jaws, parents held their children closer, teenagers scrolled with wide eyes, unable to unhear what they were witnessing. The leaks didn't stop there. Screenshots of financial dealings emerged, linking extravagant payments to subtle threats. Luxury dinners, private planes, sealed envelopes, proof of a network that used wealth and stardom as shields against the law. Each post added fuel to the blaze. Every new disclosure shredded illusions, leaving millions staring at a glittering Hollywood that suddenly looked decayed to the core. And then came the human stories. Survivors and witnesses, long silenced, began to speak anonymously. Their words were raw, haunting, devastating. One former assistant recounted nights spent hiding documents, fearing that a single wrong move would ruin their life. Another insider described late-night calls where threats were issued, promises broken, and justice buried under piles of cash and influence. People felt it in their bones, the scale of what had been hidden from the public. Fans of Malcolm were not idle. Online movements erupted, candlelight vigils turned into mass gatherings. Strangers held hands in silence, united by sorrow and outrage. Artists and musicians released songs in tribute, each lyric carrying pain so visceral it was impossible to ignore. Every street, every screen, every conversation now carried the weight of his absence. Meanwhile, the accused and implicated moved like chess pieces, calculating their next moves. Every statement, every denial only added layers to the narrative. Their silence was deafening, and silence in the world of scandal speaks louder than words ever could. Every withheld remark, every delayed response became evidence in the court of public opinion. News outlets could barely keep pace. Live panels dissected every leak, every recording, every document. Psychologists analyzed body language in press conferences. Lawyers debated the significance of the evidence. Meanwhile, conspiracy theorists and amateur detectives pieced together timelines and links, spreading theories that felt both impossible and terrifyingly plausible. The emotional toll was overwhelming. Families, friends, and fans of Malcolm cried openly on social media. Screenshots of broken hearts, tear-stained journals, and childhood photos flooded feeds. Every image reminded the world of innocence lost and trust shattered. And it wasn't just personal grief. There was collective heartbreak. Millions felt the sting of betrayal as if it had struck their own lives, their own memories of heroes and mentors now tarnished. But the intensity didn't stop at grief. Fear began to creep in. Rumors of threats against whistleblowers circulated. Every new leak was met with suspicion. Who had access to this information? Who was watching? Who would vanish next? The public consumed every update with a mix of horror and compulsion, unable to look away, knowing that the darkness they were witnessing wasn't fiction. Leaked transcripts appeared next. Conversations between unknown elites revealed manipulation at every level. Deals were made to suppress evidence, bribe witnesses, and rewrite history. One line sent shivers down the spine of every reader. If this leaks, we all burn. But so does the world if he speaks. The message was stark, icy, merciless. Readers felt the weight of a planet that valued power over life, control over truth. Meanwhile, digital arenas became battlefields. TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, every platform buzzed with probes, dramatizations, and emotional breakdowns. Users stitched clips of Malcolm's performances with ominous leaks, overlaying haunting music and cryptic captions. One viral video juxtaposed his youthful laughter with images of lavish mansions and locked doors. The caption screamed, "They hid the truth behind golden walls." The tragedy deepened as more intimate details surfaced. Private messages hinted at manipulation, betrayal, and terror that had haunted Malcolm in his final days. Every word, every line seemed to foreshadow his silence, his isolation, the peril that surrounded him. Viewers wept for what could have been prevented, for what should have been safeguarded, and for the innocents lost in the name of secrecy and power. Even the innocent were dragged into the saga. Names of friends, colleagues, and associates appeared, online, often with no proof, only insinuations. Rumors multiplied like wildfire. Every like, every comment, every share amplified the intensity, creating a collective trauma spanning continents. The world had become a witness to a tragedy magnified by fame and fear. The psychological toll on the public was immediate. People reported sleepless nights, anxiety, and an overwhelming sense of distrust. Childhood memories of heroes and idols were tarnished. Millions struggled to reconcile the bright, inspiring images of stars with the dark, alleged truths emerging. And in every home, in every city, the question lingered, how much of what we adore is real? And how much is a performance designed to hide the ugly truth? Amid this chaos, a new element surfaced, a supposed list. A single document, heavily redacted but enough to ignite speculation, suggested the web of influence reached higher than anyone imagined. Names of politicians, producers, and other celebrities hinted at a system built not on justice, but on cover-ups and control. The very possibility sent shivers through the public, a reminder that corruption often wears a glittering mask. Activists and journalists intensified their efforts. Interviews, investigations, and exposés became a daily ritual. Candlelight vigils expanded into citywide movements. People chanted Malcolm's name, not just for justice, but as a symbol of resistance against an industry built on silence and deceit. The tragedy became more than one life lost. It was a call to awaken, to question, to see the shadows behind the bright lights. And just when it seemed the world couldn't bear more, an alleged voicemail leaked. A deep, distorted voice repeated, "If we fall, the empire falls with us." Listeners trembled. Interpretations spread like wildfire. Was it a threat, a confession, or the final proof that the powerful would protect themselves at all costs, no matter the collateral damage? The emotional impact was undeniable. Children who had grown up idolizing Hollywood stars now questioned everything. Families felt betrayal, anger, and fear intertwined. Fans organized memorials for Malcolm, blending mourning with protest. And through it all, the weight of tragedy became a shared consciousness. Every person who saw the leaks, every post shared, every tear shed, became part of a global reckoning. As the second week of Revelations closed, one thing was clear. The inner world would never view fame, power, or success the same way again. The scandal wasn't just a story, it was an emotional earthquake, and the tremors were far from over. Malcolm's legacy, tragically cut short, had ignited something unstoppable. Every leak, every post, every vigil was a reminder that truth, even when buried, has a way of clawing back into the light. People wept, people raged, people refused to look away. And in that collective outpouring, the tragedy became more than one life lost. It became a symbol of justice demanded, of innocence violated, and of the steep cost of silence in a world built on secrecy. The world was holding its breath. Every eye on screens, every hand on a keyboard, every heart torn by grief and outrage, was waiting for the next revelation. And everyone knew the next bombshell would be even larger, darker, and more devastating. The day the final leak hit, the world seemed to pause. A single image, grainy but undeniable, spread across every platform. A file labeled Malcolm, the truth they hid. Panic seized millions. Fear, anger, grief. They collided in a storm of emotion that nobody could escape. People stared at their screens as though the revelation had reached into their very souls. Inside that digital file were documents, photographs, and recordings that no one was meant to see. Faces of powerful figures stared back from the pages, their expressions frozen in casual smiles that now seemed sinister. Every leaked conversation, every note, every transaction hinted at a network of manipulation and betrayal so vast, it rewrote the story of Hollywood itself. The public response was immediate, visceral. Streets filled with people holding candles. And signs. "Justice for Malcolm," they cried. "No more cover-ups." Parents explained to children that the heroes they loved were flawed, some even dangerous. Social media became a living, breathing monument to grief. Short clips of Malcolm laughing juxtaposed with allegations of deceit and murder. Each video a punch to the chest. Then came the recordings, audio clips so chilling that even hardened. Reporters were rattled. The voice of a high-ranking insider detailed threats, intimidation, and orchestrated silences. Names once synonymous with talent and trust were now tied to fear, blackmail, and corruption. Every playback made listeners shiver. Every new upload became a global event trending across multiple platforms within minutes. The world was witnessing a crumbling empire in real time. But it wasn't just the celebrities involved. Ordinary people were caught in the ripple. Employees, assistants, and friends who had worked quietly behind the scenes began speaking anonymously. Their stories revealed nights of terror, of hiding evidence, of watching injustice silently unfold. One woman described trembling as she locked away documents, certain that speaking up would mean her own destruction. Another recalled whispered threats over the phone, a chilling promise. "If you reveal this, you vanish forever." Amidst the chaos, the narrative of Malcolm transformed. He was no longer just a victim. He became a symbol, a martyr for truth. Every leaked diary page, every scribbled note, every photo became evidence of the forces stacked against him. His warnings, his instincts, his final days, everything pointed to a pattern of intimidation and control, so methodical, it could have been written by a master strategist. Fans of Malcolm took to online spaces with a fury and grief unlike anything seen before. TikTok and Instagram exploded with memorials, compilations of his life, and cries for accountability. Stories poured in from around the globe, strangers connecting over shared sorrow, tears streaming down faces as they recounted how Malcolm had inspired them and how they now felt betrayed by the world that allowed his silencing. As the leaks continued, the implicated figures were forced into hiding. Public appearances dwindled to nothing. Paparazzi captured fleeting glimpses. A trembling hand, a hurried exit, eyes avoiding the camera. Their silence, instead of calming, the storm became a signal to the masses, a confirmation that they were trapped, exposed, cornered by truth and outrage. The emotional weight of the scandal hit hardest at home. Families who had once admired these figures were shattered. Conversations at dinner tables turned into debates over honesty and trust. College campuses hosted impromptu vigils and dialogues. Young adults questioned the values they had been taught to uphold. Every revelation became a lesson in betrayal and vigilance. Meanwhile, investigative journalists raced to keep pace. Live streams, special reports, and exposés dissected each new piece of evidence. Analysts examined photographs frame by frame. Voice experts scrutinized every recording. Lawyers debated legality, ethics, and the implications for ongoing trials. It was as though the world itself had become a courtroom, judging both past actions and present intentions. The intensity didn't stop at grief or outrage. It became fear. Rumors circulated that whistleblowers were being silenced, that leaks came with hidden threats. Every day brought a new sense of urgency. People watched their screens with a mix of fascination and dread, knowing that every update could deliver another devastating revelation. The leaks reached the highest levels of power. Anonymous documents suggested that federal agencies had long been aware of manipulation, cover-ups, and threats, yet inaction had allowed the cycle to continue. The public response was explosive. Protesters outside government buildings demanded accountability. Citizens posted videos holding up alleged internal memos questioning not just Hollywood, but the institutions meant to protect them. Then came the most disturbing element, a list. A list of names, connections, and alleged roles in silencing Malcolm. The implications were staggering. Politicians, celebrities, producers, people whose influence shaped millions of lives were all potentially implicated. The public went into overdrive, dissecting every rumor, every screenshot, every hint that could identify another conspirator. Amid the chaos, the human stories remained the most heartbreaking. Children who had grown up idolizing these figures now grieved the loss of their innocence. Families mourned for Malcolm, for the betrayal of trust, for the realization that power can corrupt even the brightest lights. Posts flooded social media, images of candles, letters, empty chairs, photographs of Malcolm smiling, all under captions, filled with anguish. At the center of the storm were Malcolm's closest friends and family. They were interviewed anonymously, their voices cracking under the weight of emotion. Each account revealed the human toll, sleepless nights, fear for safety, and an unrelenting sense of injustice. People cried openly on camera, unable to contain grief that had transformed into righteous fury. The media frenzy became relentless. Every leak sparked immediate coverage. Networks broadcast special reports, dissecting every recording, analyzing every photo, debating every implication. Social media erupted in a constant cycle of outrage and mourning. Even late-night comedy shows, usually a place for levity, were filled with dark, poignant commentary about betrayal, power, and the consequences of silence. The psychological weight on the public reached a tipping point. People reported anxiety, insomnia, and a pervasive sense of distrust. Childhood heroes and public figures, once sources of inspiration, now felt alien, corrupt, dangerous. Every family, every friend group, every conversation became a space for questioning, grieving, and trying to understand a world where justice seemed elusive. And then, in the crescendo of chaos, came a final leak. A recorded phone call allegedly from one of the highest-ranking insiders whispering, "The walls are closing in. If we fall, the empire collapses with us." Millions of viewers felt a chill. Interpretations spread like wildfire. Was it a threat, a confession, or proof that no one was untouchable, that corruption and cover-ups carried a human cost beyond imagination? The emotional storm reached its peak at Malcolm's memorial gatherings worldwide. Millions lit candles in synchronized vigils. Stories, performances, and tributes were shared online and offline, blending grief with activism. Every tear, every chant, every sign became part of a collective reckoning. Malcolm's tragedy had grown larger than life, a symbol of both injustice and courage. By the end of the third week, one thing was undeniable. The world had changed. Hollywood's glittering facade was shattered. Institutions meant to uphold justice were questioned. Power and fame no longer guaranteed immunity from scrutiny. And Malcolm, whose life had been stolen, became the face of a movement demanding accountability, truth, and moral reckoning. Every eye, every heart, every mind was now tuned to the unfolding story. Every leak, every confession, every revelation reminded the world that injustice can be hidden but never erased. And as viewers stared at their screens, hearts racing, tears streaming, they realized one inescapable truth. Malcolm's story wasn't just a tragedy, it was a catalyst, a seismic shock that would echo across generations. In the silence after the storm, after the leaks, the recordings, the viral posts, and the protests, one question remained. Could justice ever truly prevail when the powerful were willing to bury it beneath fame, money, and influence? And yet, through the grief, the outrage, and the heartbreak, Malcolm's legacy endured, a beacon in the darkness, reminding everyone that truth, even when silenced, always finds a way to speak. The story doesn't end here. Every revelation, every leaked recording, every haunting photograph is a reminder that the truth can't stay buried forever. Look around. The world is watching. The streets are alive with rage. And social media has become a courtroom where justice, grief, and fury collide. Millions have felt the heartbreak, the anger, the betrayal. They have held candles, posted hashtags, and shared videos in desperate attempts to demand accountability. But this isn't just a movement, it's a reckoning. Ask yourself, how many more secrets lie hidden behind Hollywood's bright lights? How many powerful figures have silenced truth to protect themselves? Malcolm's life was stolen, his voice almost erased, but the leaks, the evidence, the memories, these are louder than any attempt to cover them up. every post, every viral clip. Every whispered story is a call to see beyond the glitter, to witness the shadows that those in power would rather you never see. Your eyes have seen the recordings, your ears have heard the confessions, your heart has felt the grief. This isn't just news. It's a cultural earthquake shaking every foundation we thought we knew. You cannot look away. You cannot ignore the faces, the voices, the cries of those silenced for too long. The world is demanding answers. The world is demanding justice. And the question lingers. Will the powerful finally answer, or will they continue to hide in silence while the fallen are mourned? So engage, share, comment, speak. Let every click, every video, every conversation honor the life that was lost and demand the truth that was stolen. This is the moment where silence no longer protects the guilty. This is the moment where the world sees, feels, and remembers. Malcolm's story is not over. It is now yours to witness, to amplify, and to carry forward.